At last, guys, we can speak a little bit about warfare in Europa Uuniversalis 5, also called Project Ceasar. Let's take a look at yesterday's Tinto Docs. In the previous dev diaries, we were already told that the system of warfare will work a little bit differently to EU4. Main change is that, especially in early game, the armies will be mostly based on levies, so the troops that you receive from the states. However, a minimal part of your actual army will be standing army. And obviously over time the breakdown between these two will be changing. Let's see what else we will get today. So first of all, military organization. Johan is telling us that the armies will be having 4 different types of units. A bit different than in EU4 we had 3 types. We're gonna have infantry, cavalry, artillery and auxiliaries. The last one is actually new. Infantry is usually the bulk of most armies, and the other categories have specific roles in the campaign. Another very important change is that the regiments are gonna based on hundreds, not thousands like in EU4, so maybe they also take care of the issue of EU4 where there are definitely way too many armies you can achieve compared to the historical sizes. So the 100 men is gonna be based for very early game, then over time obviously the armies can be a bit bigger, so what you're getting information is that the size of the regiments varies over time. The earliest infantry regiment will be 100, while at the end of the game there will be 3,200 men in one regiment, which is also an interesting change, probably is gonna help with optimizing the performance. Cavalry, artillery and auxiliary units will have different sizes. Another issue with EU4 where you're running with 100,000 cannons, it's a bit weird, right? So it's gonna have different regiment size. And that's what I told you, there's gonna be either Levy, a mercenary or a regular regiment of a standing army. Any army can freely rearrange those into a stack if they want and split up the regiments as the player sees fit. So if you want to have half of a mercenary company in one army and one in the other army, then this is perfectly fine in this game. Another change to EU4, you cannot split mercs in the current state past 1.3 in EU4, and you also cannot combine mercs with normal infantry in your game. So far you couldn't combine mercs and infantry, so this is gonna be really interesting to see how it's gonna work in EU5. There's horse archers, which is a unique cavalry unit, so there'll be also unique units that we'll be having in game. And you're seeing like what we'll need to construct them, leather, horses and weaponry, what we'll need to maintain them, leather, horses and weaponry, but in, you can see just a bit lower amount. And there are also different unit statistics, so be seeing like what the army will be based on, like what's gonna be the maximum strength, so I assume that is the regiment size, the combat power, a frontage, morale damage, unit wave, monthly damage from attrition, food storage, food consumption, movement speed, so it's gonna be different between different unit types, combat speed, really interested how it's gonna work, initiative and flanking ability. So first of all we have levies, so the big in-quantity armies that you are getting from your regions, from your estates. But they have a couple of drawbacks that obviously with a high quantity will come. First of all, you can only raise them when you are at war or facing rebels. So in peacetime you won't be having this unit, so it's gonna be also hard to prepare for the war if you're a levies base, because you cannot prepare these armies until you declare a war, unless you have rebels. Secondly, when you raise your levies, those pops you raise them from are decreased in size to represent the pops going off to war. And any dead man in any levy is population permanently lost. Another gigantic difference to EU4, where in EU4 we have there was no population, there was development and there was manpower. Over here, actual loss in people is gonna impact your population in the provinces. Not only loss of the people going to war is gonna impact this. Besides that, the levies will not spawn with any experience. Apparently there will be some experience, and you do not have direct control of the type of units you get, so it's a bit similar to Imperator Rome, but in Imperator Rome it was based on your culture, so I assume maybe there's some aspect of that here as well. Another slight drawback is that levies do not reinforce during a campaign either. A province where the levies have been raised will also produce less food and raw materials. Ooh, so if you start with 10,000 levies and 5,000 of them die in the war, they just do not reinforce. That is gonna hurt a lot. You can either raise all of your levies at once, or from any province individually, which is also very similar to Imperator Rome, and you see here an example of 12,000 levies being raised in Sweden. How about mercenaries? There are many mercenary companies available in the world, and each area has at least a few possible to recruit. However, there are not endless free manpower, as other nations may be recruiting them before you can. A mercenary company signs up for at least a 2-year contract, but you can extend the contract if you so desire. More on how mercenaries can be recruited in a later talk. My assumption is that it might work same as in Imperator Rome. I think Crusader Kings 2 also had this system where there's only one pool of mercenaries. It's not like each country can recruit, let's say, Swiss mercs. No, there's only one Swiss mercs. And if nation A, let's say France, hires them, England cannot do that. And for example, in Imperator Rome, we could bribe those to steal that mercs from them. So we can expect probably some similar mechanics here. How about your standing army? Your regular army consists of the regiments that you do not want to disband and they require more power to recruit. This recruitment cannot be done everywhere though, as you need special buildings to allow recruitment of military units. Usually, these are the same type of buildings that also provide you with manpower. As the ages go by, you go from only special buildings providing a minuscule amount of manpower to being able to build conscription centers in your core cultural locations. So if I understand correctly, besides population, we also have a manpower pool that is gonna be only relevant for your regular army. Probably starting early on is gonna be almost nothing, and over time you'll be able to grow it to have an actual big standing army. How about manpower? In Project Ceasar, this is primarily generated by buildings. As you may ask, who do we need manpower when we have pops? Well, for us, manpower represents the more or less semi-trained men that can be used in a military force. And what is this important? Whenever a regiment loses strength, be it from attrition or combat, you will lose pops as well. So we might treat in this game manpower as reserves, right? Like in real country reserves, so people that had at least some basic level of training and are ready to serve in the army. And it is really interesting because manpower will come from buildings, but reinforcing armies will probably also take manpower. We will take manpower, but also impact your pops. Here's an example building from manpower, Kurultai, which is a Mongol steppe horse building that is giving where 5,000 peasants are working and is giving you 50 monthly manpower in exchange, and costs obviously a lot of goods. One other aspect to take into account when it comes to manpower is that Project Ceasar does not have force limits, but instead you are limited by how many regiments you can maintain. Every regiment requires some manpower each month to maintain the current level of troops. So instead of force limit, you are pretty much limited by amount of the money and amount of manpower that you are having, which is really strengthening nations with a lot of money, because that means that they can go and hire infinite amount of the mercs if they can afford it, unless we again take another feature from Imperator Rome where there's a limit of how many mercs you can hire, and I think it was related to the size of the country. You might also think, what will happen if you don't have goods to maintain your army? Well, in that case, the morale will drop and you will not be able to reinforce or maintain the current strength of the army. There are a couple of unique attributes to the units, and there are some common ones that are mentioned below. So there's a discipline, which impacts damage taken, damage done, like in EU4. Military tactics, which impacts damage taken, like in EU4. Army morale, which impacts how long your armies are willing to fight before breaking, like in EU4. Infantry, cavalry, artillery, and auxiliary power, which impacts damage done by that category. So infantry combat ability, like in EU4. And there's also army tradition, again like in EU4, which is gained primarily from the average experience of your armies, which can be increased by drilling them, and impacts the morale and siege ability of your armies, while also slowly pushing you towards land on the land versus naval societas values. So it's a bit different how army tradition works, because army tradition in EU4, there are two main sources, right? Either sieging down a fort or fighting battles, especially losing a lot of troops in the battles. Obviously there are also some modifiers like events, ideas, etc. But these two are the main sources of army tradition in EU4. Over here, it will be based on experience of the armies, so a mechanic that is not in EU4, and it's gonna be also a bit different on what metrics is gonna impact. In EU4, you know what is impacting. In EU5, it's gonna impact morale, as well as siege ability. Well, in the future, we'll obviously also speak a bit more about the navies, logistics, which is gonna be super important, and about the combat system itself, because for now we talk about the units. Next week, however, we'll be back with something completely different and rather new and unique features. Let's go! But before we end for today, obviously let's take a look at the comment section. Next week, however, we'll be back with something completely different. Must be nice having the EU5 all for yourself. Congrats, happy for you. Nice. But again, I will only go to the dev responses because there's just so many comments. Can I specifically raise Levies in non-accepted culture provinces and have my unaccepted posts fight and die in my wars while my core pops are insulated? Non-accepted cultures pops will surely fight, but the volume will not be as high. So you're telling me that all the people that would die for me so I can own more land do not come back? Yes. People die. Is there any trade good representing all weapons? There will be guns and weaponry, but it's one of the things that are relatively easy to rework, and we keep iterating upon goods buildings constantly, so there might be just more in the future. Does the manpower pool have an upper limits, like max manpower in EU4? Yes, you can only store 10 years of production of manpower, so let's say you are monthly producing 100 manpower, yearly you are producing 1.2 thousand of manpower, which means that in 10 years you are producing 12,000 manpower, and that's your max that you can store. Will your troops reinforce while in enemy provinces? Can you bribe mercenaries in another army to swap sides or disband? No, your regulars need friendly territory to reinforce, so that's not like in EU4, and it's gonna make defensive wars much stronger. And finally, mercenaries can be bribed, as I said. What does the unit wave affect? It's attrition related. Wait, what? There are naval levies? You can raise them from estates? Yes! Oh, hello there, Sealand. The unit types, for example, with steppe horse archers, is there a possibility to have 2 or more different types of cavalry, like lancers and archers mixed, unlike in EU4 where you can only have one type of cavalry? Yes, another improvement. And we have a confirmation that auxiliary units will work similar to donkeys in Imperator Rome, which were taking care of a supply for your army. I think this is about condottieri, but if I wanted to do a game as Hesse where I become the mercenary capital of Europe and constantly renting out my highly trained army to the highest bidder, a resistance is in place to allow me to do this. Yes, I assume that's condottieri, but I think it's also risky because let's say it's a multiplayer and you rent a country, this army to someone, and that someone is on purpose sending that army to like mountains with huge attrition to die, and you just lose pops. People might troll you high with that, and I assume AI, with not being too smart, might do the same. This is also funny. This system seems a lot like a hybrid of Victoria 2 and Imperator, or maybe another game. Well, the last free game I was the lead from and coded was Victoria 2, EU4 and Imperator. Coincidence? I don't think so. Levies, we should be able to raise them before the war. In the end, it's the country's choice whether it wants to take the economic hit for keeping the levies in peacetime. Yes, we had that, but the AI was exploitable. I think that's gonna be it for today. If you did enjoy this dev diary, let me know by liking this video so we get to more people. Let me know in comments what you think about that military, and obviously subscribe to the channel to get notified about the future content, especially from Winds of Change. Bye!